had the opportunity yet, please review the last meeting's minutes.
Who's your partner there, Bart?
I'm doing a little double duty right now. It's my son, Curtis. So
Hi, Curtis.
he's being a super little dude while
Hi,
he's
Curtis.
busy at the moment. So you want to say hi, buddy?
Hey, Curtis.
Cute.
I also can't possibly compete with Curtis, but when we're ready, I do have an item I need to read to prep us for the meeting. So if we want to take a minute from looking at our meeting notes from last meeting, and I can knock this out, I might go ahead and do that real quick if that's all right.
Yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry about that, Penny. Go ahead.
It's a new speech, so it's not the one you've heard twice. Porter has revised it for me. Thank you, Porter. For those of us joining on the YouTube channel, good evening. My name is Penny Holler. I'll be facilitating the Zoom video portion of the meeting. I'm joined here by Director Derek Rogers, and additional Parks and Rec staff are available via Zoom. This meeting is being recorded and broadcast on the city's YouTube channel. During the meeting, please mute yourself by clicking on the microphone icon found in the lower left side of the Zoom menu next to the video icon. When you're muted, a red line will appear over your icon. Muting your microphone during the meeting will make it easier for everyone to hear. You'll just have to remember to unmute if and when you'd like to speak. You'll have to remember, sorry about that. In some cases, I may mute or unmute people as needed. And each time you speak, please remember to state your name and title for the benefit of those listening remotely. In the menu, you can also turn off your camera by clicking on or off the video icon. For purposes of this public meeting, we would request you keep your video on during the meeting. I think the exception to that will be Sally Rourke, Senior Administrative Assistant. She's taking notes, and she's also available at the front door just in case we have any last minute walk-ins. So her camera will remain off so she can assist with the meeting. If you're participating by phone, you can click *6 to unmute your phone. For those using Zoom, somewhere on your screen, you'll see a chance to toggle between speaker and gallery view. Speaker view shows the active speaker. Gallery view will show you everyone in the meeting. And now I'll turn the meeting back over to the chair.
Okay. Yeah, has everyone had a chance to go ahead and review the last meeting's minutes?
This is Marilyn Hull, board member. I move approval of the minutes as presented.
Okay, I have a motion by Marilyn Hall to go ahead and approve the minutes as presented. Do I have a second out there?
This is John Blazik. I'll second.
That's John Blazik with the second. Any further questions regarding the minutes? Seeing as there is none, all those in favor, please say aye, and I will try to, or I'm sorry, not aye, but I guess since we're Zoom, yeah, raise your hand. And Penny, that's right, I have to go ahead and name everyone, is that correct?
In theory, that would be ideal, although I think we saw everyone on the screen, and we will capture the raised hands in the notes as well. So for meeting notes, and unless there's any dissent, I think we're fine.
Okay, and as it is showing on the screen, everyone is affirmative in approving the minutes as noted. So with that, we'll go ahead and move on, and I will see if I can go ahead and toggle to the first item on the agenda there. I believe it's regarding, we recently had a email from one of our members, our board members, regarding, I guess, the duality of our position in regards to its relationship with the community, where we should comment on certain things the board might review and where we shouldn't. And I think Penny would be of great help in explaining that a little bit for us.
Sure. Thanks, Bart. I'm sharing my screen, so hopefully we're able to see this. I know you all have missed out on PowerPoint since we're not doing in-person meetings, so I thought this was a chance to get in a couple slides really quickly. In essence, yes, as Bart alluded to, we've had just some questions from advisory board members about communication and public commenting. So I was just going to go ahead and quickly kind of provide some clarification for the whole group rather than doing that on an individual basis, so we all hear the same information. As far as communication, the simplest way to put it is, right, a public meeting like this is the preferred communication method. That way all board members hear the same answer. You have the opportunity to ask questions. It allows us time to gather the most appropriate information for questions, and it's transparent to the public. So ideally, that's the purpose of these meetings, is to bring this information into this forum and involve the entire board. At the same time, email, of course, is a tool that we use for communication. It's allowed. If you need to email staff, email another board member, although this is where usually I have that big note in bold letters, open records meeting applies. So this is really not where we want to have a lot of conversation and discussion about items. If we think there's that many questions or needs a discussion, ideally we're bringing that back so all board members can participate. But it is a really great way to forward questions or concerns that you've received from others. Definitely feel free to pass those to staff so that we can make sure if there are other folks in our community that have questions, that we're getting that answered and we're getting them the information that they need. And this also could prompt us to say, hey, this might be something we need to discuss further, and it might be a topic at a next meeting. As far as public commenting, this is one of the other questions that has come up in the last month. It's really fairly simple. According to the charter of the Parks and Rec Advisory Board, generally the chair is authorized to speak on behalf of the advisory board. We would usually do that after a vote by the full board. The vice chair may speak if necessary. And the simple guidance for other board members is just to not speak on behalf of the advisory board. So that's a pretty broad statement, but that means that if you have thoughts, opinions, participation on anything else, you are free to engage in those conversations and public comment on that, as long as it's not stated on behalf of the advisory board. So that's the simple PowerPoint. I'd like to open it up to questions from board members. Anything that isn't clear on this, anything that's come up?
This is John Nalbandian. Have we ever had a problem with this?
To my knowledge, I don't think we've had any issues on this. Although the goal is, right, if we're following the guidance and doing this correctly, then we're avoiding that. But to my knowledge, there hasn't been any concern about our procedures, open records. So really, this is informational, and to avoid that situation where an advisory board member, as an example, might CC all the other advisory board members, and that's an open records concern.
Penny, this is John Blazik. Hey, thank you for this professional PowerPoint. I have a question. It's happened in the past. I don't think it's happened for a while. Are there board members that have meetings like with city mayors and things like that and other people aren't knowing about? Because if they do, should we not be invited or everybody have an opportunity?
I mean, I guess that one of the simple answers to that is, again, slide number 1. Ideally, if there are topics that need to come before the board, and there's information, especially as staff is involved in that, we want to make sure we're getting that information to everyone and having that opportunity for discussion. At the same time, I think we're all private citizens and have thoughts and opinions, run into others. Perhaps you're at a soccer game with someone else and you're chatting about something. There's really no issues with that. Again, as long as, once we hit kind of a number of board members, that for me is when we start to go, okay, we either want to kind of hold on this and bring it to the full board, or we want to make sure that we're getting those questions answered.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions that we have on this? I know with recently, we've gotten several questions from board members. So if you don't have a question now, but you think of one, please send that to me. If you have the question, there's a good chance someone else might have the same one. So let's make sure we're getting it answered for everyone.
Okay. Seeing as there are no questions, thank you for that presentation, Penny. I think it was really helpful. And I know that Jackie and I felt that would be useful for everybody else to hear it as well. So I really appreciate it. So Penny, did I go ahead and skip over public comment? Or, I know that we have public comment from one of the items on the agenda. Should we just do that after the item on the agenda, or should we just go ahead and do it now?
So it's up to you. I would say the one person who has requested public comment is specific to one of the items on the agenda. So most likely the best practice for this would be to wait till we get to that agenda item. And
yes,
after we present the item, then bring them in for public comment. They should have joined us via Zoom. I'm not sure the when.
Okay.
I don't see, let me check.
Okay, yeah, I just wanted to make sure, because if there was any way we could go ahead and have them do that initially.
That would be your option to reorder, right?
Yeah.
If you wanted to say, let's not make them wait till item number 6.
Right. But if they're not there, we can go ahead and proceed right now.
Yeah, I don't see the person who requested to join for public comment on item number 6 currently in the Zoom meeting.
Okay. We'll go ahead and move on then. Looks like the next item on the agenda is the 27th Street Extension Steering Committee. If we could go ahead and get additional information regarding that.
This is Mark Hecker, Assistant Director, Parks and Rec. I'll be taking that one.
Thanks, Mark.
Share a screen here. Everybody seeing that one? Are we good?
Yep, I see it.
Yes.
Okay. So the 27th Street extension, there's been quite a bit of press about, how it relates to the dog park area. The concept that we're going to be moving forward with is that Parks and Rec will talk with the dog park folks and other user groups to define the potential impact for the street project. And then the MSO department will actually run the street department or the street project. So the steering committee will be formed as part of the street project. And what the concept of that is that we want to make sure user groups from all of these areas are used to talk about the road and how it goes in, where it goes in, what impact it has on existing facilities. So the concept of steering committee will be, there will be a couple of soccer representatives. There'll be a couple of football representatives. There'll be a couple of dog park representatives. There'll be people from the Arboretum. There'll be people from the trails group. So the idea is to get a group of folks that have multiple interest sets and get them all in one room to talk about how the road might lay in there. The first opportunity for public discussion of the road would be sometime in early October. MSO will be taking the funding request and the grant request to the City Commission. So that'll be the first opportunity for that. Our goal would be to have a conversation with dog park users, just mostly because they've been fairly organized and fairly vocal, and talk with them about, not if the road goes in, but what improvements we would like to see in the dog park, and how could the dog park complement the other parts of the park. So are there questions on that? We really aren't fast tracking on this. It's going to be kind of a slow, methodical planning process where, maybe we'll get a consultant hired this fall and then planning will happen through next year. So this isn't a fast track project.
Mark, this is John Nalbandian. I do have a question, comment, or actually a comment. It seems to me wise that we try to engage the improvements to the dog park at the same time that we're talking about the improvement in the street. So that in effect, if the dog park people, if we can almost convey, I don't know if this is accurate or not, but convey the idea that improvements to the dog park are going to go hand in hand with the improvements in the road. And if the improvements in the road do not occur, for example, then the expansion or improvements in the dog park probably will be put off.
This is Mark Hager. I appreciate those comments. I agree. I think that it's two projects, but it's kind of one project. So I think, we told the dog park folks we would get together end of September, which is still our plan, at least to go out and have a conversation on site and point around a little bit and say, this could be improved, this could be moved. So I appreciate that comment.
Mark, I was glad to hear that because I did remember that September was the time period that we were going to go ahead and engage the people that were concerned about that. So I think any sort of attention that can be paid to that is great because that'll go a long way into allaying, their fears of what might happen if you can actually show them what the plan is.
And I think the big part of that is to allow them to be part of the plan and, have a conversation of, okay, if this goes here, then what do we need to do to make sure the dog park's still a safe and usable facility?
This is Val Renault, board member. I have a question, Mark. Did you say something like there's not an if the road will go in? I mean, is it sort of the road will go in? Because I know the petition that the people from the dog park are signing actually recommends that road not go in, that there be another study in terms of some other egress from the soccer fields. So do you think there is an option that the road could go somewhere else, or is that a done deal?
It's not a done deal. So the project moves forward only with City Commission approval. So okay. As that goes to the City Commission, there'll be opportunities to either move it forward or not move it forward. As far as other locations for that road, there really aren't any because we're very limited by where we can go by the Corps of Engineers. So, I think good information is better than misinformation. I think there may be a lot of misinformation floating around out there now. So, until we get an opportunity to bring forward a viable plan, it's kind of hard to talk about, how do we kill this thing? Yeah,
I see a lot of other hands up, but I'll just continue. How will this steering committee members be chosen, and I assume that will all be made, information made available to the public on how that steering committee will operate.
Yeah, Mark Hecker again. I think that's going to be part of the presentation to the city commission is the recommendation from MSO on how that committee is formed, or if the commission wants to place people on the committee, or, you know, we have a lot of user groups that it wouldn't be hard to find people, I'm pretty sure. But
This is Sandy Hull, board member. That was kind of my question, was when you refer to the dog park people, how organized are the dog park people? Do they have a spokesperson, or is it just the loudest people, most vocal, that make up the dog park people?
Mark Hecker, yes, there is. They have some organization. There's two folks that have kind of raised their hand and said we would love to be the representatives, and you know, I think the group is agreeing with those two folks being the representatives, but there's also a lot of other people that are emailing around. So yeah, I think when we get down to that point of forming a committee, we'll maybe want to engage the bigger group and say, okay, we need two folks, or these two folks okay to represent you.
This is John Nalbandian, board member. Mark, the most compelling argument that I heard, I think Lee made it last time, where he told us in an emergency, there's no way to get everybody out of the park, meaning if the sirens go off and so on and so forth. That to me is like, okay, we have to do something. So that's part of my argument would be that, a big part of it.
Yeah, Mark Hecker again. It's kind of a bigger project than on surface, because this goes all the way over to the K10 intersection, and the traffic safety studies have been done over there, and that relates to how we exit out of the complex. And it, you know, even in our master plan back in 2017, 16, it talked about the need for these additional roads. But yeah, there's a lot of back information that's really not out there yet. But yeah, safety is a big deal. And, you know, as they construct a potential interchange at 27th and Wakarusa there, or K10, you know, how does that interface with this road? So that's being looked at on a bigger picture, that KDOT's looking to basically take K10 over the top of Wakarusa and extend Wakarusa to the south. And I think that'll happen. The problem is no one knows what the time frame is on that, or the dollars funding for that. So certainly if that happens, that changes the push on this project. But I think this project is part of that project.
Mark, I apologize. When was, did you mention a particular day when that dedicated meeting would be with the folks who are concerned about the dog park?
Mark Hecker, no, we haven't set the date. I'm thinking probably the very last week of September. So we will get that out. I'm hoping to maybe set a date this week. It's kind of interesting on how we're going to frame that conversation, because I don't want to have a 600-person Zoom meeting. I'd rather have it on site, but we also have to watch our numbers. So we're kind of interesting meeting dynamics, I guess.
This is Pat Collette, board member. At the last meeting, I talked a little bit about whether or not the traffic studies were going to be included in the scope of this project at that intersection of the dog park and 27th Street. Since that last meeting, I've been contacted by some folks in the cycling community, also concerned about the intersection of the Lower Dam Road and 27th Street, and whether or not in the scope of this work, looking at safety considerations around that intersection as well, for cyclists and the increased traffic that'll occur at that intersection. because that lower dam road is highly used by cyclists now. And so just taking that into consideration.
And Mark Hacker, the Parks and Rec. Yeah, I agree with you. And I think the first step for the design of the road will be hiring a design consultant. So I think a lot of that, the information on how it ties into existing networks will be included in the scope of that professional services we're hiring. So, will it be a full-blown traffic study, or will just be analysis of existing intersections? So I think what you're saying is accurate and needs to be included.
This is Marilyn Hull, board member. Mark, as we hear people in the community, and in my case on Facebook, discussing this, how do we connect them, or what should we tell them about the way to have their voices heard? I've been sending them to you, but I don't know if that's correct.
And Mark Hacker, yes, that is correct. And we've fielded dozens and dozens of questions. What we've been trying to do is kind of deal with them one at a time. As people send an email or call, or we've either call them back, or my best approach is just call them back and talk to them so that we can have a conversation instead of sending 30 emails back and forth. And, for the most part, people understand the project more after we've talked a little bit, because like I said, there is a lot of misinformation out there that's, we're running a super highway through the middle of the dog park and whatnot. But so I think once we actually have a conversation, I feel like it's still a successful project that can happen.
This is Pat Collette again. I just wonder if there's any way to give, kind of more regular updates to the community about the progress of this, so that there isn't, that really helps deal with that misinformation, so that people kind of know where what's being considered. And, I know that, in some cases it's too early to talk about a lot of specific, but, giving the community more of a sense that, that it's not a done deal, or that there's opportunity for input, and that, that these things are being considered, and all of these areas of concern that people may have are being considered as we go, rather than, well, this road's going to happen and, you can't do anything about it. Kind of thought that when you see some of the things on Facebook, I think, that's kind of the sentiment sometimes. So just wondering whether there's more that could be done in terms of, public outreach as we go, rather than waiting for big meetings along the way, or when it becomes before the city commission.
Yeah, Mark Hacker, the Parks and Rec. I think you're right on track. And what we've been talking about and actually are working on is a web page just for both the dog park project and the 27th Street project, so that any information that we have can be put there, and then we can start guiding people to a web page and saying, here's what's the most current information that's out there. So, and if they're seeing something that they don't like or something that's missing, they can call and request, and we can add. So I think, in my mind, that's probably the best way to kind of curb the misinformation that's out there.
Thank you for doing that. Yeah, I think that would go a long way. Yeah, that's a very open concept, and I think people would appreciate it.
Jackie Becker, board member. Mark, with the gathering of the steering committee, do you find, because we've named all these groups, whether it's soccer or football or dogs or bikes, will it be equal representation, or will some have more voices, or is it like you see it being as one person per group, or how does the city commission pick that, or does Parks and Rec pick that?
Mark Hacker, Parks and Rec. The steering committee will be handled through the MSO department, but we'll advise them on people that we think would be great for it. In other words, we'll go to the Sporting Cow Valley soccer folks and go, hey, we need 2 folks. And then to football, we need 2 folks. And dog park, we need 2 folks. So we kind of keep it, there's not 15, 20 people from each group in there, and then let them represent their user groups. so that we don't get too biased one way or the other. So I feel confident in the user groups saying, hey, these two folks would be good at this and they're interested in this. And that's the main thing, because this is going to be a year and a half of design conversation meetings. So we're going to have people that are really interested to stick with us on it.
This is Bart Littlejohn, yeah, I think that should definitely be included, the timeline, so to speak, because as has been alluded to by Val and several other members of the committee or the board here, people have the sense that this is going to happen tomorrow for some reason. So I think that would go a long way to allaying those fears.
I appreciate all the feedback. I think everything you're saying is accurate, and I think we just need to start pulling it together.
Just got one big picture comment. The road is really MSO and Mud Run is Parks and Recreation, and we're not the lead on the road. I think we need to keep that in mind, regardless of what happens with the road, whether it happens or not. I do think there's need for improvements out at Mount Run at the dog park, and I think we need to keep looking at that. Even without that road being active, other than people walking behind it, I don't think it's the safest place to be for dogs or kids or people. And I know I've had my concerns backing up out of the parking sometimes back there with, is there a dog behind me or a person? So I think there's things that need to be looked at there, and if we do move the parking lot to be safer, than the shelters and other things, improvements. I think that's, regardless of what happens, the need for public input to improve the park and discuss things is always a good thing.
Just one other question about the website. If we have questions about that, is there kind of a time frame that we could let people know that they would be able to see that information?
Hey, Mark Hecker again. Actually, we had talked about having it up and going this week. And so again, the MSO staff and their public information staff are working on that. So hopefully, once we get it up and going, people can take a look through it and go, hey, where's that report? I don't see it anywhere. So we'll start getting feedback on if the information that's desired is visible, and then we can add it as we go too.
Great. Thank you.
Okay. Were there any other further questions for Mark on this subject, this item? Okay, seeing as there are none, thank you for your presentation there, Mark. We really appreciate it, and thank you for keeping us in the loop. To go ahead and move on, actually, I'm gonna do a little bit of a switcheroo in the agenda right now. I think I think Chris Tilden has joined us. So if possible, Penny, I would like to go ahead and move the Lawrence Loop update up so we could go ahead and address that.
I think we're hearing again from Mark Hecker on,
Okay.
it was agenda item number 6, and we're moving it up on the agenda to accommodate public comment.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
We surprised Mark a little bit, so I think we're.
I'm sorry about that, Mark.
To show us his other slide.
Mark, I apologize. I was being a little bit. Are you ready for that? If not, we can go ahead and do something else first.
And Bart, this is Chris. I certainly can stay on if you. Either way is fine with me.
Okay.
Okay, how about now?
Yep.
Okay. I found out I need to unmute and stop and share.
And again, I apologize, Mark.
That's okay. So update on the Lawrence Loop. So this is big picture of the Lawrence Loop all the way out by the highway, turnpike, looping all the way around the city, doing good, yellow line. We have a little segment right here on 29th Street that will be built this next project. And then we have the loop section up here that's going through Hobbs Park. So those two projects were supposed to happen this fall. We've been delayed a little bit. They're going to bid in January and then construct early spring next year. So that's pretty much a go. The other project that's in the works is, can you see up here by the turnpike? Let me zoom in a little bit. So the other project that's starting to plan is, and this is Hallmark up on Iowa Street, Peterson Road. So the next project after the one we're currently constructing will go up to the turnpike underneath McDonald Drive and get over to Michigan Street. So that's another one that was grant funded through KDOT. The idea there is then we would loop down to Sanders Shaw Park here or down here. So these all look like very, very small pieces in the big world. And, you know, they're each, you know, pushing $700,000 or $800,000. The one under McDonald Drive is closer to $1 million project, but they're moving along. And that's something the city commission's been interested in, is continuous progress on this loop. And it's getting pretty exciting because we're starting to fill in the gaps, but, you know, there's still a few left, but I feel like it's going well. So questions or comments?
Yeah, it's so I'm looking at the one that it's off McDonald. Is there any sort of idea where it will connect from the end of that new portion to Sanders Shaw, where that connection will be made?
There's multiple, Mark Heck with Parks and Rec again, there's multiple concepts. So one goes down Michigan Street, then goes in near the hospital and hooks in. The other one goes a little more kind of backwoods behind here. However, there's land acquisition issues back here that we'd have to achieve. So there is room along Michigan, but there's quite a few houses we'd have to cross in front of. This was part of that study that was done multiple years ago on potential routing of the loop.
This is Bart Littlejohn. Thanks, Mark. I was just wondering, were there any further questions for Mark regarding this before we open it up to public comment?
This is Marilyn Hull. I don't have a question. I just have a thank you to Mark and other staff members involved in continuing to make progress on this project. It's really great to see, and it looked like we might have a completed loop in my bike riding lifetime. So I'm excited about it.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. Don't see any other comments or questions. At this time, I would open it up to public comment. Chris, you are on.
Great. Thank you, Bart. Can you all hear me? Awesome. I really wanted to reiterate what Marilyn said, and that was to thank Mark and the Parks and Rec staff who have worked closely with MSO and other partners over the last couple of years. I can't recall a time that we've been like working on 3 sections of the loop. And as Mark said, early 2021, we should build, 3 new small sections. It's pretty clear to me that, COVID has shown, perhaps more so than ever, how interested people are in having opportunities for activity outdoors. The city did not, the MPO did not carry out their normal bike ped counts this last spring, but as part of Friends of Lawrence Area Trails, and I'm not talking on their behalf tonight, but we replicated a 2017 project in partnership with the MPO that helped us do counts in early June. And we did counts both during the week and over the weekend. Unfortunately, that ended up being like record heat over that weekend, and it was kind of miserable. So our numbers actually compared to 2017 were a little down over the weekend, but might have been influenced by weather conditions. But during the week, we saw a pretty marked increase over 2017 in the amount of activity. So, I think we may try to replicate this again in the fall, because I think it'd be really interesting to see like where we are in terms of utilization of our trail segments. You look at the numbers on Burris Creek Trail, Bircham Park. There's just an awful lot of activity out there, and I'm sure all of you see that on an anecdotal basis when you're out there. I also did receive a request from the MSO that is looking at submitting a KDOT grant before the end of the year for the Michigan to Sandra Shaw Park segment. So we're also working on plans for that segment, which then leaves really kind of two pieces, the East Lawrence downtown Bircham Park connection and the part out by Rock Chalk Park, connecting further to the east. So I think it's really exciting. We'll potentially be at a point where we can say, gosh, we just have these two connections left. And like Marilyn said, hopefully within the next few years, if not at least within our lifetime, we can get this work done. I certainly think there's a lot of advocates that are very interested in seeing the downtown section, which we know has a lot of hurdles, but would really be a wonderful piece of infrastructure, both for transportation and recreation purposes. So, I don't have any specific complaint, news, etc. Just really wanted to reiterate how excited I think a lot of members of the community are in the progress we're making, and I'm glad to see we're getting close.
Thank you for that, Chris.
Thank you, Bart.
Absolutely. Okay. I don't think anybody else had anything. Yeah. Just make sure we really appreciate you guys keeping us in the loop about this, so to speak, and we are grateful that you continue to do so. So, sorry for the side look. My son was. He's playing a little hide and seek with me, so I'm sorry. I'm just making sure he's not getting into anything. So, with that,
Bart, I had a comment, John
Yeah.
Albandian.
Mhm.
I cannot imagine the tourist attraction that a completed loop is gonna provide. I mean, can you imagine if you're a cyclist from Johnson County and you come to Lawrence and you can ride around the whole city, 26 miles or whatever it is. I just think this is gonna be wide open.
I would agree, John. I would agree. I think it'll be a boon to our community. This is Bart Little John. I think it will do nothing but help Lawrence tourism. So, does anyone else have a comment or would like to say anything before we move on to another topic? All righty. We'll go ahead and move on to our next agenda item, and that would be the park fees and policy updates. Penny, would you go ahead and help us out with that one?
Well, Penny's sharing on talk a little bit about it. Just
Oh, I'm sorry. I apologize. Derek.
Derek Rogers, Director of Parks and Recreation. You know, this agenda item is just for awareness. Our past history on a lot of our shelter reservations has come down to two smart people in our admin building. And our concern was that we should be more public and transparent with the prices. I have no doubt that we were being consistent on our shelter rentals and park rentals. So park staff, along with our admin staff, reviewed shelters. The big picture is our most popular shelters had a slight price increase, and some of the smaller shelters had a price decrease. The rest remained the same. So on the increase, we're looking at basically 4 parks. That was Broken Arrow Shelter, Centennial Park East Shelter, South Park Gazebo Full Day, and Birchwood Park Shelter. At the decreases, we had the Watson Park Gazebo, the Outlook Park West Shelter, and Outlook Park East Shelter. And again, if you rent it for the whole day, then you got a more of a discount. So again, it was more for awareness, and I don't think our park shelters, along with a lot of the things that we should be reviewing, had much attention in I don't know how many years.
Penny Holler, Management Analyst. So everyone should have received this along with their agenda. It's also available online at the Parks and Rec Advisory Board meeting agenda. I'm having some trouble pulling up the list of fees that Derek was referring to, but hopefully everyone is able to see that in the agenda packet. If you have any questions about, let me know. I'm for some reason, it's just not letting me display it right now. I can see the rules and regulations. It's not letting me display the fees. So apologize for that.
Jackie Backer, Board, I just want to tell Parks and Rec, looking at these prices, they're still just so very reasonable. And thank you so much for still offering free shelters for people to be able to use in our community, because obviously there's some people who those costs might be a little too much. So appreciate all the work and time that you've put into making fees doable and affordable for our community.
Director of Parks and Recreation Director, and I'll have to give all the credit to staff because it was their reviews. Just a heads up on the shelter, our last, you can see the dates on there, October 31st is our last winter or rentals for the shelters before we hit the winter season through April 14th. It's amazing how fast this year's flying by.
This is Bart Littlejohn. Did anyone else have any comment on the shelter rules and regulations and fees?
This is Marilyn Hull. I don't have a comment on them as much as a question. For staff, are you seeing any changes in demand for these outdoor facilities? I'm thinking specifically related to COVID. Are more people having outdoor meetings and that sort of thing?
I'll let Penny answer that.
Penny Holler, Management Analyst. I would say compared to last summer, it's been in some ways a little quieter, as everything has been with COVID. But we get a lot of phone calls of people wanting to know what they can do. What can we do during COVID? We know what we can't do. So people are really excited that we have opened up shelter reservations, and we're working on plans to, as long as we're complying with public health orders on social distancing and mask wearing, that we're doing that. So maybe not at the pace it was last summer, but certainly it's picking up. There's a trend line. It's on the increase. I'd say in the last, especially couple weeks, we've gotten just a lot of phone calls and online reservations. So we might be trending up compared to where we were in the spring and even early summer.
Derek Rogers, Director of Parks and Recreation. We went most of the COVID year without, we just had first come, first serve, and follow the Lawrence Douglas County Public Health guidance for mass gatherings and social distancing. And I know just because I bicycle close and I live close to Danbury Park, that shelter is always busy. And I think you see it in some of your neighborhoods that there's some that have got a lot of use. And it's my equation would be similar to downtown Lawrence and free parking. We're not going to charge for a while. And I'm glad the community had that benefit. But as we go forward, we're trying to allow reservations and so people can plan a little bit.
Thanks, Derek. Yeah, and thank you for the information, Penny, Smart Little John again. I would just like to echo what Jackie said earlier, that I think that having one more space that people could be in and to, not only just get out of their house, but to actually, do something similar to what they were doing before can do nothing but help everyone. So. Did anyone else have any questions or comments for Derek or Penny? Alrighty. Seeing as there is none, thank you guys for that information. We really appreciate it. To go ahead and move on, I believe the next item is the development of the reopening plans with the health department metrics. If you could go ahead and let us know about that. Thank you.
Penny Holler, Management Analyst. I'd like to recognize Assistant Director Lee Ice. He and Derek have been working on this topic.
Yeah, just kind of give you an update. I think we touched on this a month ago. It's ongoing. We have not got the document completely tweaked as of yet. We're hoping to get it completed this week, but we're getting real close on where we're headed. In terms of the overall objective of this is to help us in decision making for the future about when and how we're going to open up our facilities. I can say that we're getting relatively close, hopefully within the next month at least. In some fashion to get some, if not all, of our indoor facilities open for drop-in use. Again, working with the health department and their recommendation, as well as Unified Command, and trying to mirror a lot of the things that the school district did as far as the color coding of the green, the yellow, the orange, and the red. Roger Steinbrock is putting together that document for us with, again, the help of the steering of the health department. We've got 3 doctors involved in how we're going to roll this out within the next month, and then getting staff on board because of hiring part-time people. What happens if, currently we're in the yellow, which still enables us to do certain things. But if we go to orange at some point in time, which is over that 10%, then we close down again. So we've got to be very careful about going out and hiring part-time people and then laying them off a week later. So we got to figure that out, that portion of it. And so we're getting real close, and I just don't know that we're able to. I can answer any questions that you might have, and Derek, you may help me with this if you know. We're just not sure right now when this document's going to be completed. Hopefully this week.
Derek Rogers, Lawrence Parks Recreation. What Douglas County Public Health was tasked with doing was having a document on how Parks and Recreation Department services within Douglas County, to include Eudora, Baldwin, and Lawrence, should occur as a standardized document to follow the recommendations. So initially we started developing it and crafting it after the school plan. Public Health had some questions about, well, how come Eudora can do this or Baldwin can do that and Lawrence isn't doing this or that? And so to put this to bed, they wanted to standardize the document. And so we've been involved in a few conversations with Eudora, Baldwin, Public Health. The focus of what we're doing is safety first with a focus on community. And it's a it is a conservative document, and it really does focus on health and where you come from and using our facilities. So I think that's our baby step coming into it. Again, I think we're trying to get a meeting this week with Mr. Partridge and some of the public health staff to go over some of the questions that we were fielding. I think we've got a good, consistent document built for the county. But when you start discussing it with some of the end users at different facilities, you'll get the questions of what about this and that. But I think the key is to have a document that's consistent and our guidance is predictable, and the community can go out to the public health site and say, okay, we're yellow. Oh, what's that mean? It may mean there's no tournaments in Lawrence or in Douglas County at any of the Parks and Rec.
All right. And I would assume that, even though that you're going to have this outline, the rules in it, that I would assume that there would have to be some sort of inherent flexibility in it, because this is a totally, kind of volatile situation. You don't know exactly what level it's going to be at one time.
Derek Rogers, Parks and Recreation Director. And, I look at the guidance from the schools. All the superintendents agreed to the document, and then the next day they go from green to yellow, and they're supposed to not play football and other high-risk sports. And so they took the information and said, well, we're going to wait and see if it's consistent. The data is a scientific metric, but it's an art to look forward and go, what's going to happen next week or the week after? And I think the school district approach to, if there's a change, let's give it 10 days to 14 days to make sure that that's the right change. We want to bounce from green, yellow, or go yellow, orange, back to yellow. And, you can't play volleyball with a mask on, and now you can, now you can't. So we want to be consistent, give some predictability to the community too, and make sure that what's happening and what's the recommendation from public health, and they've been thinking along the same line since the 14-day rolling average. Take a week or two and sit on that data before you make a change or decision.
Thank you for, this is Bart Littlejohn. Thank you for letting us know that, Derek. I kind of wondered, but for, explaining the 14-day rolling average, that helps. Does anyone else have any questions or comments for Derek or Lee?
This is Marilyn Hull. Forgive me if I didn't listen closely enough, but it seemed to me that the school district actually deviated from the public health guidelines. Is that correct?
I would say you're correct from the recommendations.
Okay, and so I guess my question is Lawrence Parks and Recreation, will Parks and Rec be in the same position of potentially making a judgment that's different from what public health is recommending, or is it your intention to follow their recommendations kind of to the letter?
I asked the same question of Douglas County Public Health, so they felt the same frustration, and so I came at it from a different angle of, okay, everybody's bought into this, and is this a recommendation or is it a requirement? Well, they're recommendations, so there's flexibility. And based on some of the data, even public health was saying, let's wait and see. September 10th was supposed to be a wait and see, and I don't know if the school districts deviated on September 10th or not. They may have stayed the course, but that was kind of the 2-week mark on let's wait and see before we go to orange and go back to yellow. Okay, now you play a football game. We just said you couldn't, or go back to green, you can play football and you can't the next week. So I like that idea of waiting 2 weeks and consulting with public health and get their recommendations. And do they believe the data and do they think that's the right decision? Things don't happen in a vacuum. I do want to be consistent and I want to follow the guidelines. For example, if we had something in September and we said, yes, you can do this event, I don't want the document to come out and say, well, you can't have your event next week after you've already done all the planning, but don't plan on it if the document comes out on October until, we're going to follow this guidelines. The same if it says, 100% mask requirement in all facilities by everyone. How do we start that off? Is it when a facility opens and it's fully open to the public, or is it staged, or do we say the next day we're ready to go with that? Some of those pieces we haven't fully decided on yet. Not easy answers. No matter what you do, somebody's not going to be happy.
Now, I will just say in sort of my circle of friends and contacts, there was a lot of disappointment and consternation, even anger, that the school district was deviating from what was supposedly like the unified command. And I wouldn't want Parks and Recreation to get in a position of also being criticized for what people might see as being too eager to jump back into sports. You guys are in a terrible position. I recognize how difficult it is, for sure. There's just a lot of judging and blaming going on in the community right now, probably any way you look at it. But I certainly urge you to try to follow the public health advice as close to the letter of the law as possible.
Appreciate your comments and your support, and I think there isn't, at least in the leadership team of Parks and Recreation, anybody that would differ in that opinion of being consistent and safe.
Okay, does anyone else have further comment or questions for Derek regarding this? Okay, and Derek, I would concur with Marilyn that the safe bet would definitely be to go ahead and follow as closely as we can with the public health department. I don't think I would agree it's an incredibly tough situation, but any sort of major deviation would probably not be looked upon kindly. But yeah, I think you guys are doing a great job in the incredibly difficult circumstances that you're put in right now. So thank you. To go ahead and get us moving on, the next one is the Water Tower Park update. If you guys could go ahead and give us some more information on that one.
This is Mark Hecker with Parks and Rec again. Let me take that one again. If we can share a picture. All right, so the Water Tower Park project, just off of Iowa Street. Existing water tower is right here. And the proposed move would be move the water tower to this side of the park. It just orients you a little bit. There's a little backstop here. There's a little playground here. This went to the Planning Commission late August and quite honestly didn't receive approval. Lots of neighborhood concerns, which is understandable. If you kind of live up here on the north side or on the east side, you weren't real favorable of moving the water tower closer to your properties. There was quite a bit of conversation about could the water tower move straight south. If it did, it would impact our playground, which honestly wouldn't be a major planning issue. I think the playground could be relocated. The concept is just green space. So when we look at this park, we want to try to keep as much green space as possible. So if you look at the current footprint, this is actually blocked out. So there's a bunch of cell buildings over here. The new plan kind of does that. So it moves the water tower. So this is just the base of the water tower. So actually the new plan gains some green space. However, it's not the green space that's there now. So in other words, this is kind of an open area, but we would gain a lot of space over here where the existing water tower is. So I think this will go back to the Planning Commission probably in October for their recommendation to the City Commission. I don't know that we're a major player in it other than just kind of wherever it goes, we'll take the other piece. And, you know, I guess I just want to keep you advised that this is an ongoing public conversation that has kind of people on both sides of this issue. I can take any questions if there are questions.
This is John Nalbandian. If we're not initiating this, who is?
That would be the MSO department. So their existing tank is 50+ years old, needs to be replaced. It can't go back in the same spot because the way I understand it, the demand on this tower is reasonably high. So in other words, they couldn't do without it for say a year while they tear it down and build a new one. So they need to relocate to a different spot. So MSO, this is part of the utilities project.
This is Val Renault, board member. Am I unmuted? Oh. So there's a fence around the existing one. With these other structures, I don't know if those are cell towers or for the new one. That's going to take up a much bigger footprint if it's fenced. So that might be obviously one of the concerns of the neighbors. Is that the plan, that whole area would be fenced?
This is Mark Hacker again. This is the current fence. The other plan does not call for a fence. However, it does disperse buildings out here in the middle of the park.
Okay.
John Nalbandian, board member again. Is there a way that we can think creatively about the possibilities for the park to mitigate the sort of the undesirable nature of the water tower? For example, could we sponsor or somebody sponsor a sort of artistic creation or artistic picture mural or something on the top or over on the tower that would, you know, really make it stand out from other things? I mean, I'm really concerned. If I had a house there, I would wonder what the assessed value, what's going to happen to the market value of my property.
Yeah, Mark Heck with Parks and Rec. I think those were all the concerns we heard at the Planning Commission. And, you know, every single neighbor all the way around there had a pretty distinct opinion of what they thought should happen and what impact it would have on their property value. So, yeah, I can just take it from the park perspective in that I think we could gain what we're losing, but it would definitely be a rearrangement of what's there.
And Derek Rogers, Parks Recreation Director. One of the things I was thinking about and I've discussed with Mark, yes, MSO has been leading the water tower park, but when they finally figure out where the water tower is going, I think we should engage the neighborhood and the community. What do they want? Do they want the playground back, or do they have open space? What's their vision? And I think that is a key piece that needs to be addressed in this project.
This is Bart Littlejohn. I'm glad to hear that, Derek. That effort, or at least that consideration, is being made to go ahead and engage the community on this. Does anyone else have any comment or questions regarding the water tower update? Okay, seeing as there are none, I believe, Penny, what's next on our agenda? I don't have it right in front of me.
Penny Holler, Management Analyst. Concerns and board member items of interest?
Okay. That being the case, would anyone have any concerns or items of interest that they would like to share?
Bart, this is John Blazick, board member. I just, with my concern with what Marilyn said, and I know, Derek, you guys got a tough job. You know, there's going to be 50% of you like your decision and 50% not. That's just the way it is. But also, with that being said, in the circle of people that I run with in the community, they supported the school district 100% with their decisions. They wish and think the park and rec should open up as well. So I want to make sure there's always well-known two sides to every pancake. And in this community of Lawrence, I've met more experts than ever in the last 3 months on everything. But I do not feel sorry for you. That's your job. But you're going to have a tough decision. But the people that I'm around supported the school district. I want to make sure that was on record, and they wish things would open up within the parks and recs. So that's what I want to make sure from my end. Thank you, Bart.
And this is Bart Littlejohn. Thank you, John, for mentioning that. I appreciate it. I definitely want to make sure there's two sides to every story, and that, you know, people get the full breadth of the conversation. So I appreciate that. Thank you. Any other items of interest for anyone out there, or items of concern?
Yeah, this is Sandy Hall, board member. I just would like to, again, thank you guys for sending us these publications. I had my oil change today, and I sat there and I read August and September's issues. And one really dealt with social justice, and the other with COVID and kind of a post-COVID world. What does a Parks and Rec department look like? So I would just encourage y'all to, you know, look those through. And there were I thought some pretty good ideas of programs and looking at how to, when facilities open up, how to let people, you know, come into facilities, regulate with temperatures, and just the things that we're sort of doing now, but on a bigger scale.
This is Val Renault, board member. What are those publications? I haven't seen those.
Oh, it's Parks and Recreation. I get them in the mail. Does anybody else get them?
Yes, I get them in the mail as well. You're not getting them, Val?
No, I'm not getting them. Put me on the list, please.
We can make sure that happens.
Because I thought Roger had a lot of videos on our agenda last week, and I didn't look at all of them, but there was one with Gail Sigurdson, is that her name? And I thought it talked all about how they're addressing COVID, and I thought, you know, people are looking for best practices, so I don't know where those get shared, but so obviously that magazine is one of the places. So yeah, I'd like to see those. Thank you.
This is John Blazick, board member. Sandy, I want to second what you said. I agree with you 100% on that. Reading material and professional development magazines and etc. I appreciate that.
Jackie Becker, just to let you know too, Val, you can ask to have it be sent to you digitally if you don't want to have the paper copy too. So.
Bart Littlejohn, is anyone else not receiving those either digitally or in hard copy form? Just curious. Okay, I guess you're the lucky one, Val. I'm sorry. I'm sorry about that. Does anyone else have any items of concern or interest? Okay.
This is Marilyn.
sorry.
I have one other thing, and I mentioned this to Derek in an email, but I haven't noticed any change. When I've seen Parks and Rec posting on social media about programs and activities, there's no content about what modifications have been made, what safety modifications have been made. And I've seen people put in comments like, how is this going to be safe? So I think that the community wants to participate in programs, but what I'm seeing is a lack of information about how it's different than it was, a year ago or 2 years ago. So I wonder if it's possible to just have some statement in these different media that says, follow this link for our safety precautions or something like that. I know I would be reluctant to sign up for a class unless I knew exactly what the protocols were.
Derek Rogers, Parks Recreation, talking cleaning or the protocols when you come into a facility, what expectations are for mask wear, temperature taking.
I'm just saying, like, if I'm going to sign up my granddaughter for gymnastics, I'm not going to put my money down until I understand how this is going to be run. And so maybe you have a certain page on your website that has some general rules, and for every specific class, you just have people link over to that page. I don't know. I don't think you have to come up with a certain specific, content for every single class, but I do think it's on everybody's mind. And to just not say anything about it, I think kind of raises questions in people's minds and probably makes them less likely to sign up than if they knew all the lengths that you guys are going to keep things safe.
This is Lee, Assistant Director of Maryland. I agree with you on that. I think we're doing it backwards possibly, because I think that information is being sent out after they get signed up. I think you're right that it would maybe encourage more people to sign up for some of these if they knew about it ahead of time. I know there's a link on youth sports, for instance, baseball. There's a protocol that states on the youth sports website specifically of the protocol of social distancing, wearing masks. If you come and you're a spectator, there's all those rules and regulations in the team sports type activities. But I think with the classes, I think you're right. We probably need to put that out on their website someplace that before you sign up what that protocol is going to be.
This is Bart Littlejohn. Good catch, Marilyn. I think that will help a lot of people allay some of their fears or some of their concerns going forward. I mean, and to help them along with that decision. I just thought of an item of interest or concern, and it's a good one. I just want to mention that you guys are doing a great job with Broken Arrow Park. I see the progress. I work not too far away from there, and it's going well, and it's looking great. And my wife comments all the time on all the lovely flowers downtown, and so I think you guys are knocking it out of the park that way as well. I know it's incredibly tough, and you guys are just doing a great job, and I just want you to know that you're appreciated. So.
This is John Blazik, ditto Bart. I think the flowers are beautiful. Derek and Lee, and I don't know the person's name, but I want to compliment him. And I think he's your golf course superintendent that fixes everything. He was out yesterday on number 13, 12, spending Sunday digging a hole, fixing a sprinkler so he wouldn't waste water on Sunday. Compliments to him, Lee or Derek. I don't know his name. Is that the superintendent? Huh?
Keith, I think. I bet you that sounds like Keith, and that'd be under Mark's trick.
Maintenance side involved, that would be Heath.
Okay, compliments to him.
I do have one comment. My email box right now, and I apologize, Marilyn, I catch things, I try to pass them on, I don't always get back to them. Right now I'm swimming in emails, but I do want to recognize John Novandian had a great idea, and I have talked to Roger about, we talked about the flowers and how great they are and who designs the landscaping and the gateways around town, and could we do a series so that even through the winter months, we did one a month. Who designed this? What were they thinking when they did the landscaping? Unfortunately, we lost one of our great videographers that was a part-timer in our office. And right now with working on getting the classes going, I don't know where Rogers, if he's even had a chance to take a look at that, but it was I think it's a great idea and something we need to keep looking at.
Awesome. Good deal. All right. If no one else has any items of interest or concern, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved. I make a motion to adjourn. This is Pat
Second it.
Collette.
John Blazic seconds it.
Okay, that's Pat Collette with the motion and John Blazic with a second. Any sort of comment or questions or anything regarding that? Looking as there are none. And if you agree, hands up. If you are opposed, please don't be opposed. Okay, I saw a lot of hands, so the motion approved. All right, everyone, we are adjourned. And guys, the whole Parks and Rec crew, I just wanted to let you know, let Roger know we miss him. We hope he's doing well, and you guys are doing great.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good evening.
You too.